Imagine walking out the door without your entire life, your mobile, wallet, and crucial pills are just sitting there. People simply do not vanish in the pitch dark without uttering a single goodbye to their loved ones. Relatives showed up to her residence on the 1st of February, only to find the rear entrances standing wide open. Inside rested her device, wallet, and pills. The residence appeared as though she merely went for a quick stroll and vanished forever. Curiously, every single valuable item remained completely untouched. Honestly, that specific chilling detail kickstarts this entire twisted saga. You already know the core facts here. You have tracked the headlines. You recognize Nancy Guthrie. She is an 84-year-old lady known for her devout beliefs, stubborn autonomy, and being the mom of prominent network television host Savannah Guthrie. Reports state she was last spotted late on the 31st of January, right after her daughter's husband brought her to that Tucson estate at approximately 48 minutes past 9 at night. Exactly 2 minutes later, her garage shut. At 47 past 1 that morning, her porch lens went totally dark. Roughly 12 minutes after 2, another sensor caught a figure, yet no footage survived. By 28 past 2, her internal cardiac device completely dropped its digital signal. Authorities received a frantic call hours later once she missed her regular Sunday worship service entirely. Investigators discovered alarming red spots, staining the entryway steps and trailing down toward the pavement outside. Testing later verified those crimson drops belonged exclusively to her. We all heard about those extortion letters demanding massive fortunes. And tragically, her whereabouts remain completely unknown to this very day. However, the crucial element you might have overlooked. The exact thing stumping detectives right now is a glaring clue that sat in plain view from the jump. Thieves took nothing. On the 26th of March, Savannah spoke with her old broadcasting partner Hoda Kotb for her initial on-camera discussion following the disappearance. It was a massive 3-segment broadcast spanning both the 26th and 27th. During that broadcast, she publicly verified the exact bizarre details her relatives struggled to comprehend. Initially, finding those rear sliders wide open sparked deep confusion. None of those clues formed a logical picture for them. They initially assumed a medical team arrived with a gurney, rolling her straight out of the residence. However, her personal device, handbag, and daily necessities were completely abandoned inside. Stepping into the residence, relatives found those patio sliders wedged wide apart. Her mobile remained untouched. Her wallet sat there. Everything was abandoned. Ponder the sheer gravity of those items. In 2026, a smartphone functions as far more than just a chatting tool. That gadget serves as your digital pocketbook, health chart, financial hub, and absolute tether to reality. Humans typically grab their screens long before lacing up their footwear. Walking away from it willingly might not be totally impossible. Yet, it remains incredibly suspicious. Consider her handbag abandoning identification, paper money, bank plastics, and house keys is wild. These are literal tools of freedom required to navigate society, all discarded. Then there are her daily prescriptions. Medically speaking, this specific clue screams the loudest. This 84-year-old matriarch relies heavily on an implanted cardiac rhythm device. As her daughter described, she endured agonizing physical distress. Severe spinal issues heavily restricted her daily movement. Swallowing those pills was never optional for her. They were absolute survival tools, the type where skipping doses triggers fatal results. Yet they sat untouched on the kitchen island. During the televised broadcast, the anchor posed a harrowing question. Sadly, nobody has provided an answer yet. She wondered aloud how her family ended up filming pleas directed at the captors who snatched an 84-year-old elder. Why is this happening? How could they be forced to record a public plea aimed at whoever suddenly grabbed a frail 84-year-old lady? They snatched her during pitch-black hours, wearing only sleepwear, lacking footwear, and deprived of vital prescriptions. Picture this tiny elder dragged out during midnight hours, lacking sneakers and remedies, absolutely no footwear or electronics whatsoever. She vanished without pharmaceuticals or a handbag. Someone deliberately extracted an 84-year-old cardiac patient suffering from spinal trauma out of her sanctuary during midnight hours. Furthermore, one specific relative diagnosed the grim reality instantly. On television, the host disclosed key details regarding her sibling, Cameron, working previously as an armed forces tactician and combat aviator. He recognized this dark scenario without hesitation. Throughout those initial frantic telephone calls, her brother boldly theorized, "I firmly believe she was targeted for financial leverage." The network anchor admitted she resisted his theory, desperately denying such horrific concepts. Terrified, she questioned him. "Is this happening because of my public profile?" He gently responded, "I hate to say it, but perhaps." Questioning if her fame caused this nightmare, he simply affirmed the terrifying possibility. That brief conversation featured a defense expert heavily conditioned to analyze hostile operations. He categorized the felony instantly, relying purely on the abandoned scene description. This rapid assessment highlights the unmistakable evidence left behind at the property. The clues were never confusing, especially not to a seasoned tactical veteran. Everything painted a crystal-clear picture. An 84-year-old matriarch was missing. Her crucial possessions stayed perfectly intact. A crime scene speaks volumes. Those wide-open doors practically screamed the truth to detectives on day one. She definitely didn't just walk away freely, yet the clues pointed to a much darker reality. Every single detail whispered secrets about her abductor's true desires. And chillingly, the things they absolutely ignored. Greedy criminals always grab obvious loot, like a typical thief swiping your television. Common thieves snatch cash. So, a mastermind seeking a huge payday wouldn't abandon a loaded purse. Nobody motivated by pure greed walks away from a smartphone or items they could flip for profit. Surveying Nancy Guthrie's residence that early February 1st morning, authorities quickly realized this wasn't a standard robbery. Everything a typical, cash-hungry thief desperately wanted was abandoned. Her mobile device, private ID cards, and vital pieces of personal property remained entirely untouched on that kitchen island. This exact puzzle forced veteran federal agents to ask a terrifying question if getting paid wasn't the goal. Why take her? We have to discuss those extortion letters next. Since they initially made this mystery resemble a standard hostage situation, the kidnappers laid out strict timelines alongside a request for $6 million in Bitcoin. Tucson's KGUN9 and TMZ verified the perpetrators demanded $6 million in crypto. These letters reached KGUN9, KOLD News 13, and TMZ early in February. The authors shared secret facts about the house, specifically mentioning a broken security light and where she kept her smartwatch. Harvey Levin from TMZ noted this digital timepiece was hidden in a truly unusual spot. Anchor Mary Coleman noted the message held confidential information only the true abductor could possess. Top investigator Heath Janke actually verified these chilling facts during a press briefing. You don't get intimate knowledge from randomly stalking a rich lady online. This culprit knew the house flawlessly. Their letters established two hard cutoffs, 5 p.m. February 5th and February 9th. Yet both passed, zero funds moved. And Savannah treaded very lightly discussing demands during her March interview. She suspects most viral letters were just cruel hoaxes, cooked up to torture a grieving family. However, regarding the pair of demands her relatives actually engaged with, she genuinely considers them legitimate. Detectives honed in on those two, but when both threat windows closed silently, the extortion theory began falling apart. Whenever abductions are purely motivated by quick cash, that ultimate payment cutoff serves as the most critical event, acting as the peak moment they prepared for. It is their ultimate power play, where prior planning culminates into securing money or turning violent. Once that clock runs out with zero communication, no cash drops, and absolutely no bargaining. A greedy hostage taker chooses two options. They double down on threats to show deadly consequences, or they start compromising and making deals, simply because a money-hungry criminal desperately needs cash. The massive payoff is why they risked federal prison to kidnap someone who is now just dangerous dead weight. Whoever mailed those threats regarding Nancy completely vanished, doing absolutely nothing after their initial time frame expired. They completely failed to escalate violence or negotiate prices. Then that final target date faded into the exact same chilling silence. To be fair, federal agents haven't denied secret communications, because high-level task forces keep their best cards hidden. Secret negotiations might have happened off the record, but officially, we just saw two ultimatums expire. With zero proof of a payoff, local deputies and Phoenix agents completely stopped calling this an ongoing hostage exchange. Changing their official terminology was a massive red flag. Interestingly enough, local reporters definitely weren't the first ones noticing. Retired operatives instantly read between the lines, knowing exactly what it means when official briefings alter their vocabulary. Veteran agent Harry Trombus handled endless hostage situations, so when reporters asked him to weigh in on Nancy, he offered an honest, calculated breakdown that only a hardened insider with frontline experience could deliver. The man avoided sensationalizing anything, refusing to guess without concrete physical proof. He boldly stated a cash grab makes no sense anymore, because complex extortion plots offer too many risks. Forget the money if cash wasn't the motive behind this twisted vanishing act. What actually was? Trumpus laid out the chilling theories. Detectives are undoubtedly chasing down right now, pointing straight to pure fury or vengeance. Or maybe there is some sinister third reason nobody has even fathomed yet. Retaliation, Rage, or a total mystery. He then tackled the current search trajectory head-on. Federal agents and local cops are hunting down leads with the absolute conviction that she is breathing. He remembered a past manhunt involving 5,700 leads, where Clue 5,444 cracked it open. Trust me when I say, the feds and local deputies are working around the clock chasing thousands of fresh clues, and I hear those numbers are swelling daily. He firmly addressed the gritty reality of a final resolution. Nobody should jump to the bleak conclusion that she is gone forever and will never be brought home safely. We have demonstrated time and time again that snatch victims can be rescued safely, even after months have passed. You are hearing a seasoned veteran of abductions talking with extreme caution on camera to deliver one clear message: the hunt is fully active, the final chapter remains unwritten, and the trail is absolutely not freezing over. A payout seems increasingly doubtful. Those aren't the words of someone who believes this is a classic extortion plot with secret backroom deals happening. That sounds like an expert who dissected the psychological footprint and physical clues. Ultimately, deciding a cash grab makes zero sense. Then he points out the terrifying motives that actually align perfectly: a deep grudge, blindra, or some twisted driving force we haven't uncovered yet. Plus, Trumpus isn't the only one calling out the extortion angle as completely bogus. Let us break down what a fading extortion angle practically means, as it completely reshapes the trajectory of our entire deep dive. Cash grabs fundamentally rely on holding all the cards. A captor's entire advantage hinges on the target, staying alive and accessible to trade, making a breathing hostage their only true currency. Eliminate that breathing bargaining chip, and his entire high-stakes gamble instantly shatters. The very foundation of an extortion job rests upon keeping the captive breathing, which explains why seasoned hostage takers keep the phone lines open. They send hostage videos, haggle over terms for days, and play the long game because their prize is worth a fortune. Keeping the hostage breathing and visible simply guarantees the crooks stay in control longer. Listen closely. When an ex-federal investigator declares the payoff scenario is practically dead, he is politely explaining that the psychological fingerprints left behind absolutely clash with a crook who was merely chasing a payday. Based on this theory, those extortion letters weren't the actual end game here. They were merely a theatrical disguise, perfectly introducing the next seasoned professional weighing in publicly on this nightmare. Former federal operative Andrew Bringwell now heads up an elite protection agency right in New York. Bringwell broke down the forensic clues for Newsweek, analyzing exactly what the bloody scene reveals about the evening Nancy Guthrie vanished. He laid it out with this exact quote: "Even without confirming missing valuables, my gut says the intruder came specifically to abduct Mrs. Guthrie before the whole plan went sideways." The detail about brutality erupting and her getting injured without dying makes his disclaimer regarding the missing property incredibly crucial. Bringwell isn't offering an ironclad conclusion stamped by the police department here. He is delivering a veteran sleuth's psychological and physical breakdown, dividing his massive theory into 4 heavy-hitting components. The ultimate goal was abduction, proving this wasn't some random burglar stumbling blindly into an occupied home while searching for loose jewelry. The calculated scheme, based on his crime scene analysis. The attacker came to extract one precise human target. The expert added that the meticulous setup strongly suggests this monster has definitely pulled off major crimes before. Despite the apparent blunder, yet the blueprint failed. A phrase profilers use when a carefully mapped-out operation takes a drastic detour. That doesn't imply the prowler was shocked by her presence, but rather that the extraction collapsed into pure chaos. Bringwell suspects the attacker severely misjudged Mrs. Guthrie, lashing out violently. the second she decided to fight back. The sheer brutality inflicted upon an 84-year-old might have triggered a catastrophic outcome the assailant never originally intended. This shoeless grandmother in sleepwear with a heart device threw punches, single-handedly altering the entire trajectory of her kidnapping. Bloodshed definitely occurred, a fact already proven by the crimson trails leading from her doorstep straight down to the pavement. Investigators fully confirmed that the gore belonged entirely to Nancy. Pathologist Dr. Michael Ben reviewed the gruesome crime scene photos for Fox News, explaining how those air-mixed blood spatters from her face perfectly matched the chaotic struggle of a violent abduction. Veteran federal investigator Maureen O'Connell dropped a bombshell while analyzing the blood splatters for News Nation. The total lack of gaps or footprints absolutely proved Nancy didn't walk out. She was physically hoisted away. The way I picture it now, they bundled her inside some fabric, lifting her completely off the ground, causing those perfectly circular crimson spots to drop straight down without any smudging. My theory is they rolled her inside material and physically lugged her away. O'Connell explained, bringing puts this brutality into perspective, insisting this bloodshed wasn't intentional, but a sudden mistake. He directly linked this nightmare to Carrie Lawson's 1991 kidnapping, an Alabama lawyer whose remains stayed missing. Back then, just like what likely happened here, things started as a classic money extortion plot. Bringing informed Newsweek, they eventually cracked Lawson's disappearance, though unfortunately the attacker had already murdered and dumped her, then took his own life. Bringing admitted that old tragedy still gives him nightmare, making this specific parallel extremely chilling and deliberate. They hurt her but didn't end her life. She definitely survived the initial home extraction, as Bringing strongly emphasizes, had the assailant genuinely wanted to execute her, the armed intruder could have finished it right there. The attacker obviously didn't mind getting physical, considering the clues prove they actively wounded Mrs. Guthrie while armed, yet they held back from striking a fatal blow, highlighting a highly calculated psychological restraint. This reveals massive clues regarding their true objective and what they actively tried avoiding. If she survived the initial abduction, where could she possibly be hiding for almost 2 entire months? Combining the forensic clues and psychological profiling allows us to finally piece this together, recreating the shadowy figures, infiltrating Nancy Guthrie's residence early February 1st, somewhere around 1:47 in the morning, right after disabling the front porch lens, before her heart monitor dropped at 2:28, proving this wasn't random, pinpointing her exact location, singling her out specifically, figuring out access points, and pre-writing those extortion letters. None of that screams spur-of-the-moment impulse. Criminal psychologists classify this behavior as a highly orchestrated, goal-oriented strike, an operation featuring a clear objective, strict procedures, and a mapped escape route, meaning these culprits strategized everything. However, as Andrew Bringing sharply points out, things backfired. Recognizing how an abduction derails completely helps decode the chaotic physical clues abandoned at the scene, explaining exactly why detectives abruptly changed their entire pursuit strategy. A flawlessly executed hostage situation typically leaves behind pristine environments. Minimal forensic traces remain, alongside rapid contact establishing terms using the hostage's life as leverage. Criminals aren't panicking during these initial phases. They're strictly handling business, calmly executing the opening gambit of a highly calculated financial exchange process. But once an abduction gets messy and unforeseen, hurdles pop up mid-snatch, the attacker's mindset fractures completely, turning methodical precision into frantic panic with wildly rushed judgments. Their playbook burns. Suddenly, the intruder must execute desperate measures. They completely avoided planning for those crimson drops splashing the deck towards the concrete driveway loudly proclaim they hit a wall, violent human pushback. The struggle indoors definitely caused a massive uproar, forcing the ambushed kidnapper to confront split-second dilemmas they completely left out of their blueprints. Either calm things down, unleash brutal violence, or simply run. Yet regardless of their reaction, the felony actually unfolding morphs into something entirely different than their initial scheme. Bringing, noting she suffered harm without dying during the getaway, confirms their frantic pivot didn't result in immediate murder. They took her alive as a captive, bleeding but breathing. Those leftover letters imply the snatchers initially clung to their extortion fantasy for a little while. However, Trump has officially raised a massive red flag, a mystery the clues demand, but the blackmail theory utterly fails to explain. Provided cash was the only motive, how come two distinct time limits passed quietly without anyone turning up the heat afterward? What explains the total lack of solid evidence she survived, even after her relatives broadcasted an eager willingness to pay? Relatives flooded social platforms. Savannah, sister Annie, and brother Cameron openly surrendered to the terrifying demands. Like everyone else, we've caught wind of those extortion demands swirling around the news. We absolutely must see undeniable proof she's breathing and securely in your possession right now. Got your demands. Completely agree to cough up the cash. Just show us. She's all right. They followed crisis negotiation manuals perfectly, yet only heard deafening silence from the other side. Harvey Levin actually read that message, stating it began by promising Nancy was terrified but physically unharmed. A bizarre reassurance buried inside a vicious extortion threat. Ink on paper means absolutely nothing when someone goes completely missing, as those empty letters gave her frantic family zero actual evidence she was still breathing. Anyone truly desperate for cash will gladly prove their bargaining chip is still completely intact. Empty threats carry zero weight without physical confirmation, so relatives have absolutely no logical reason to hand over a single dime blindly. An actual crook seeking cash knows this fact perfectly. Someone who does not actually care about getting paid will never bother offering proof. Since a payout was never their ultimate endgame, that specific detail is exactly what Harry Trumbutus highlights, while pointing out that pure vengeance and deep hatred are the real motives worth exploring here. Top criminal profilers and federal investigators have actually taken this exact psychological difference and turned it into an entirely separate classification of offense. National experts who analyze abductions clearly separate two completely distinct types of offenses that happen to share an identical outward appearance. The first scenario involves an abduction where scoring a massive payout remains the absolute driving goal. The attacker just wants cash, using their captive merely as a tool to secure those funds, making survival absolutely mandatory to finish the trade. Consider every single aspect of the plot, like choosing the target, making contact, or setting up the exact payment instructions. The ticking clock is perfectly engineered to guarantee a fat payday, whereas the second scenario simply uses an extortion demand as a clever disguise. Here, the attacker harbors entirely different intentions, whether deeply personal, relationship-driven, strictly punitive, or downright murderous. However, faking a shakedown offers two distinct advantages. The real motive lacks. It actively throws detectives off the scent and drastically stalls the clock. Securing extra hours is the absolute most vital component in this second type of setup. Whenever an incident gets staged as an extortion plot right out of the gate, police tactics are completely dictated by that illusion, dumping energy into chasing money trails, watching digital crypto wallets, prepping bargainers, and handling terrified relatives. Crucially, the law enforcement tactics during a live hostage standoff contrast sharply against their strategies when keeping the captive alive simply isn't the attacker's main goal. Hostage bargainers sit back and wait. They play the long game on purpose, granting the suspect breathing room, a chance to relocate, build a gap, and completely scramble their physical footprints. Setting up a fake extortion plot effectively manipulates how immediate family members react during those absolutely crucial initial moments. Relatives convinced their kin is being held for a cash exchange act radically different than folks who suspect their daughter has already met a grim fate. This clever smokescreen does way more than simply derail the detectives. It actively blindsides the exact loved ones who would normally start demanding harder, vastly more threatening answers about the culprit's true identity and dark motives. Now, apply this exact psychological lens directly to Nancy Guthrie's situation, where demanding letters showed up almost immediately after her inner circle realized she was entirely missing. Both local cops and ordinary citizens instantly swallowed the narrative of a classic hostage crisis, an easily understood offense, boasting a standard response manual, and ideally offering a clear-cut happy ending. Yet the actual physical clues left behind on day one violently contradicted that comforting assumption. The house was completely untouched by thieves. A genuine extortionist always snatches the mobile device because snagging it establishes absolute dominance and proves they actually hold the cards during bargaining talks. They pocket the driver's licenses, the daily pills, and any vital daily belongings. Any real hustler looking for a payout either steals those essentials or purposefully trashes them to strip authorities of any useful tracking clues. They absolutely never leave them neatly stacked on a kitchen island like the victim simply went for a stroll. Plus, look at the crimson stains on the entryway and trailing down the pavement. That brutal assault that Bringwell verified actually occurred totally clashes with the standard playbook of a cash-driven abduction in one massively glaring manner. Real money-hungry captors absolutely hate dealing with wounded captives. A bleeding target is a huge burden. Because hurt hostages inevitably spark immediate healthcare emergencies, a damaged hostage remains brutally tough to conceal, transport, or manage effectively. And any battered captive denied proper triage quickly turns into a corpse. Corpses simply cannot rake in extortion payouts, meaning the sheer brutality witnessed at her doorstep was never a tactical decision supporting some grand shakedown. That bloodshed screams of a dark intent that a simple cash grab scheme simply cannot explain. Then comes the utter quiet after those countdowns expired, and it wasn't the calm patience of a professional haggler biding their time. An actual criminal chasing a bag cannot afford going dark, desperately requiring that cash payout. Since getting rich was their sole reason for breaking federal laws anyway, the dead air stretching past February 5th and lingering way beyond February 9th is certainly not restraint. That vanishing act is the psychological fingerprint of an attacker who never engineered those ticking clocks to score a paycheck, building ultimatums solely to manufacture an alibi. How should we interpret an abduction boasting zero financial follow-up, heavily relying on threat letters that fizzle out without a single repercussion? It delivers absolutely zero concrete evidence that the target still breathes, even while her frantic relatives basically beg to pay. Furthermore, it clearly features a culprit wielding highly private, unreleased knowledge regarding the missing woman's own household. Forget the cash. According to top profilers and veteran federal agents analyzing this type of offense, the individual who snatched Nancy Guthrie likely never cared about a massive financial payout. Those ransom letters demanding $6 million in cryptocurrency were likely just a brilliant smokescreen designed solely to stall the clock. Crucial hours to let tracks freeze. A calculated delay meant to shift police from a frantic rescue mission into a sluggish standoff that was never going to happen. A critical window allowing the culprits to completely sever all physical and digital ties to their gruesome actions. Should this entire theory hold up, proving the extortion was merely a very clever illusion, then authorities aren't actually hunting a greedy hostage taker. Instead, they are tracking a calculating predator whose main objective was covering up a permanent elimination, completely disregarding any potential for wealth. The ultimate endgame was simply erasing Nancy Guthrie from the face of the earth. Let me be perfectly clear. Detectives haven't officially endorsed this specific theory on the record yet. Yet it's the only logical conclusion when you weigh the known facts, the abandoned personal items, and those ignored payoff windows, alongside zero evidence she's alive. The bloody doorstep, and the suspect's intimate familiarity with the house itself, plus Harry Trumbus publicly doubting the extortion angle, leading us to question the true nature of this terrifying offense. Experts in criminal psychology classify this exact pattern as a disappearance designed purely for cover. Snatching the victim isn't a strategy to acquire sudden wealth, but rather a guaranteed method used to silence them forever without leaving any obvious traces. They weren't targeted because they represented a massive potential payday for the vicious attacker, but simply because letting them live, talk freely, and assist detectives posed an unacceptable risk to the guilty party. Murder masquerading as an extortion plot is a tragically familiar tactic we've seen before. Courts have handled these exact scenarios, and the psychological markers always match up perfectly. This wasn't an accidental burglary. The intruder arrived with a specific destination and schedule in mind, dropping intimate details in their letters that instantly alarmed federal agents working the active case. Highly guarded secrets regarding the victim's smartwatch and a broken security lamp were mentioned long before hitting the local press. Harvey Levin from TMZ noted that the device was hidden in a spot nobody would intuitively check. Federal Bureau of Investigation agent Heath Janke corroborated these startling facts during a local media briefing. Those aren't the words of some random crook who picked a rich mark out of a local newspaper. Those messages came from someone intimately acquainted with the layout of the residence. Opportunists snatch high-profile victims for quick cash, whereas cover-up killers select their prey based on deeply personal, pre-existing ties. Differentiating between financial motives and relationship targeting remains the biggest clue profilers use to safely separate these two vastly different types of offenses. Every single clue here, especially the ignored valuables, suggests that money was never the main objective. Viewing this case purely as an elimination plot explains perfectly why the handbag and mobile device remained completely untouched. The killer absolutely did not want or need them. Draining savings accounts or holding official passports hostage was never part of their dark, twisted agenda. Stealing valuable things didn't matter. Making someone vanish completely did. Abandoning the device makes sense since data wasn't the target, while leaving everything completely untouched provided a massive strategic advantage for the culprit. It deliberately confuses the initial responders, making a pristine home look like the owner simply walked out of their own volition. A baffling runaway case instead of a violent kidnapping. Each passing minute that authorities doubt foul play gives the suspect more precious time to successfully flee the state. Leaving those vital pills and expensive items on a clean surface wasn't a sloppy mistake. It was calculated theater using fake demands to stall the clock. Which brings us to the most chilling realization of all. Assuming the author cared solely about hiding a body instead of actually cashing out, the letters served a singular, devious purpose, totally unrelated to $6 million, creating massive delays. That paperwork successfully downgraded a frantic, aggressive search operation normally used for deadly kidnappings into a sluggish bargaining phase, forcing detectives to move at a painfully cautious, bureaucratic pace. Standoffs don't trigger the massive deployment of tracker dogs and rescue squads that real manhunts do. Bargaining protocols delay interrogating friends and family, choosing instead to wait around patiently for the next threatening call. This hands the culprit breathing room, explaining perfectly why 2 massive drop-off windows expired without a single word. Those threats were completely hollow from the start, acting merely as a countdown timer for their escape. The killer was likely playing a waiting game, betting the investigation would freeze over completely before hiding the ultimate truth. No solid evidence ever existed to show the victim survived. Look at any legitimate hostage situation in history, ranging from cartel snatches down south to massive executive grabs overseas. They all provide evidence the target is breathing. Providing this detail isn't polite etiquette, but rather the actual merchandise being purchased. Since extortion falls flat without it, relatives literally have zero incentive to hand over cash when the threat letter remains nothing more than empty scribbles. Zavana, Annie, and Cameron went online to demand this exact confirmation, posting, "We received your demands and fully comprehend the situation. The funds are ready." They pleaded for visual confirmation of their mother, while Cameron separately announced, "We haven't been contacted directly at all. Please reach out and give us a secure channel to talk so we can finally get this sorted out. Show us our mother first." Though, a major celebrity gossip host mentioned the initial letter stated the captive was terrified yet unharmed, writing down survival guarantees on the exact same page that asks for $6 million proves absolutely nothing. That is merely a convenient lie spun by the author, especially since concrete survival evidence never materialized, which investigator Harry Trumbutus pointed out immediately. Assuming those messages were legitimate, wouldn't we have seen a cash drop by now? Or at least heard rumors of funds transferring, coming from a retired federal investigator who spent years handling intense hostage and blackmail negotiations? This public observation highlights how standard extortion tactics are completely missing here, especially regarding the gruesome physical clues and hidden motives. The expert was incredibly straightforward. Brutal force occurred, leaving the target badly hurt. Looking at this through the lens of covering up a crime, those wounds suggest a far deeper meaning than his initial breakdown implies. That specific interpretation, built on decades of legitimate law enforcement experience, concludes, the physical struggle was a tragic accident during a standard money grab that simply spiraled out of control. He believes the attacker completely misjudged the victim's fighting spirit, leading to unintentional bloodshed when she fought back. However, the overarching evidence discussed here hints at a much darker reality entirely. Someone chasing a massive payday avoids hurting their prize, because a wounded hostage becomes an absolute nightmare on all logistical fronts. Spilling blood offered zero strategic advantage to a criminal actively trying to secure $6 million in cryptocurrency. It only made the subsequent escape and negotiation phases exponentially more difficult. Psychological profiling proves this brutality stems from an intimate vendetta rather than greed, leaving physical scars that shatter the entire extortion theory. Experts analyzing laser-focused predatory behavior often spot a clear connection. Excessive brutality typically mirrors the intense personal hatred the attacker harbors toward their target, Whenever physical assaults unnecessarily endanger the criminal's getaway, just as we see in this scenario, it strongly implies the assault was intimately motivated, which perfectly explains why seasoned federal agents speak so cautiously on camera. The retired agent never outright calls the extortion letter a complete fake. Instead, he notes, the financial angle seems incredibly doubtful, pointing toward vengeance and sheer fury as the true catalysts, while the other professional points toward a horribly derailed robbery. Their ultimate viewpoints diverge significantly, yet both uniquely agree that the financial motive simply fails to explain the physical clues left behind. Having a pair of veteran investigators independently dismantle the official narrative is far beyond a simple accident. It represents the raw facts talking directly through the experts trained to decipher them. Putting together an exclusive squad of 20 to 24 officers was incredibly unusual. Teams of that massive size don't get deployed for straightforward extortion plots that normally end with a simple financial exchange. Such massive manpower is only triggered when the mystery deepens so drastically that every federal tool becomes absolutely necessary. Cutting-edge cyber tracking, monetary surveillance, psychological profiling squads, exhaustive interrogation procedures, and the absolute power to cross state borders effortlessly. The local county sheriff actually went on national television to announce detectives likely understand the motive behind the break-in. He explained that the house seemed specifically chosen, though they couldn't be 100% certain just yet. Behind every mystery like this lies a deeper lesson about awareness, trust, and human responsibility. We often believe danger comes from strangers, but this story reminds us that real threats can be calculated, patient, and frighteningly familiar. The smallest details, an open door, untouched belongings. A missed routine can carry powerful meaning. Learning to notice what feels off is not paranoia. It is protection. This case also shows how easily truth can be hidden behind deception. Not everything is what it seems. False signals, like staged messages or misleading motives, can delay justice and create confusion. That is why critical thinking matters. We must question, observe, and never accept surface-level explanations when lives are at stake. But beyond fear, there is also hope. The persistence of investigators, the courage of families speaking out, and the willingness of communities to help prove something important. No one stands alone in the search for truth. In the end, this is a reminder to care more deeply for our loved ones, for our neighbors, and for the quiet signs that something isn't right, because sometimes noticing one small detail can be the difference between silence and saving a life.